Today, I want to show you how to summarize your data in SQL instead of Excel. And this is going to help you if you have really large data sets or you're doing things really repetitively. It might be a good idea to switch from using Excel into SQL. So I want to show you how we're going to do that today. So if you don't know, a few weeks back, I put out a video that said how to summarize your data in Excel using things like VLOOKUP and pivot tables. And so this was using these two spreadsheets right here. So we have a sample ID, we have body weight, height, and body fat, and then we have sample information. So each sample ID has a group and a sex related to it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull these things, and I already have mine in SQL. Two options you can use that are free is BigQuery Sandbox. That's done by Google, and it's a cloud-based system. I am using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So if you want to use exactly what I'm using, you can download that and then import these your tables into it. And I will probably actually have a link below where you can go and get this spreadsheet. And so you can check out the link to be able to get this spreadsheet if you want to do this exact thing as well. So we have, here's the SQL Server Management Studio. And so SQL is actually code that you write instead of it being kind of drag and drop like Excel is. But it's really simple once you get the hang of it, and you probably once you find it, you can start doing some really cool things with it. So I'm going to do a new query, and the first thing I'm going to do is just show you these two tables in SQL. So I'm going to do select. So this is where you're telling it what columns to pull for you. And if you use an asterisk, that means it will select everything. And then I'm going to do from, and I'm just going to pull this in. So that, and then using a semicolon to end it. So if I execute this, now at the bottom you can see our ID, body weight, height, and body fat. Cool. So that's the first thing. Now I'm going to look at the second one. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, but now I'm going to change the table that I'm using. So I'm going to pull the sample information in, keep doing that, and do a colon, copy it, and execute. So now you can see we have this, the ID, the group, and the sex. Cool. So now what we want to do is in the other Excel video, there's two main things I did. The first one is I pulled the group and sex from one sheet and pulled it into the other. So we want to do that real quick. And then the other thing I did was I found the averages by the group, sex, and everything else. So we're going to do that, but we're actually going to do it in a single code. So I'm going to show it to you in two codes first, and then I'm going to show you how we do it as a single step, just to make it a little bit clearer. So we're going to select, and this time we're going to select everything. I'm going to write this and then this, and it's not going to make any sense right now, but I'm going to show you what we're going to do in a second. So to be able to get the information from the sample information table into the data table, we actually are going to have to use what's called a join. And so in this case, we're going to do from, and then we're going to do this data table. Cool. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to give it an alias. So I'm just going to say as DT, so that's my data table. And now what I want to do is join that with the sample information table. So I'm going to hit join, and then I'm going to bring in my sample information table. Cool. And I'm going to do that as SI. Okay, so now that we've told it to combine these two tables, we have to tell it what it's combining on. So in our case, our ID equals our ID. And so here our ID is just ID. I'm gonna run this query real quick and make sure it's also just ID, so it is. So now what we're going to do is say on The nice thing about this compared to VLOOKUP is those columns could be anywhere. So my ID column could be the last column. It doesn't matter at all. So I'm going to say on dt.id. So this is saying the ID column in the data table equals si.id. Cool. So now it's going to say dt and si.id. Now, there are multiple different types of joins, and I don't really want to get into that for this. Basically, the type of join we're using is only going to give us the information for IDs that are in both tables. If we want to get all the information for the IDs in the data table, but even if it doesn't have sample information, we would do something called a left join, which just means putting left here. If we want to get all the information for the IDs in the sample table, even if it doesn't have data, we would do a right join. And then if we just want to get everything, even if it doesn't have a match, we would do an outer join. Right now, I know that everything in both IDs has a match. So I can just do an inner join, and I would get the exact same thing if I did an inner, a left, a right, or an outer join. That might have been really complicated, but I might do another video on like joins later. But this is basically the simplicity of the joins. So now what we need to do is come up here because this just says all. So I'm going to actually do dt.all and si.all. So this is telling it to give me all the columns from dt and all the columns from si, but with this information included. Okay, so whenever we run this here, we now generate this. So we have the IDs, we have the body weight, height, body fat, and then we have the IDs again, the group, and then the sex. So now what we want to do is actually get rid of our IDs and just give the averages of these things. So I'm going to show you how we would do that. So we're going to do select again. And then we're not going to do the IDs. Instead, we're going to do group, sex, body weight, height, body fat. So we're going to do group, sex. Since there is a space in the body weight, we're going to offset it by brackets. We're going to do height. And then we're going to, again, by brackets, do percent body fat. And that. Cool. So now we're going to do this same from information here. So we offset group because there's actually a keyword in SQL that says group by. So we don't want to confuse it. So now we have our group, sex, body weight, height, body fat. You can see that here we have control male, multiple times. This is because this is still separated out by the IDs. We haven't actually averaged anything together. So now what we want to do is we're going to do the average AVG of the body weight, and we're going to do this as average weight. We're going to do the same thing for the height, but of height as average height, and we're going to do the same thing for the body fat as average body fat. So the reason we're doing these as's here is because that's going to become our new title or our new headings for our columns. So right now, if we ran this, we're going to get an error. So see if I execute, it's going to give me an error. This error is because we're telling it to do a calculation or a summation of these things, but we have two things here that we haven't done any aggregated of, which is group or sex. So we need them to group this data by the group and the sex. So to do that, we just simply have to do group by, and we're going to do group, comma, and then sex. Now we have the control female, experimental female, control male, experimental male, the average weight, average height, body fat. So now we're close to where we were before, but now we're going to add in the standard deviations. So similar to Excel, we do stdev. I'm actually going to just copy these rows since it already has a lot of my information in it. So we're going to change this stdev, and then we're going to do sd. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Cool. Select it all. And now, in one thing, even if we had none of this information up here, we just got the average weight, the standard deviation of that, the average height, standard deviation, average body fat, and standard deviation. Now, we can also get the count for all of these. So let's add in, count is the same function that works. And so what we want to do here is we want to count the numbers. So we're actually going to count the IDs so that we're making sure we're getting distinct. So we're actually going to count distinct IDs. And it's going to give an error here because ID is ambiguous. So we're going to do dt.id to tell it which table to look for. So it's doing that, and we're going to do that as in. So now what we could do is we could get standard error, or the standard error of the mean. So what we do is we take our standard deviation and we would want to divide it by the n. So put that in there, and we're going to do that as standard error of the weight. There we go. So all of our red went away because it was mad that we were missing a comma. And if we execute, we now have the standard error of the weight right here. And that's just by, oh, we got to divide it by the square root, sorry. SQRT of that. There we go. It's the square root of n, not n itself. There we go. So now we have the standard error, standard deviation, the average weight, and we could do that over and over again to do all of this. So that might have taken me a little bit longer than it took me in Excel. Obviously, if I was just coming in and doing this, it probably would have actually taken me less time, but I wanted to kind of show you what I was doing along with this. But here's the nice thing, is if I had another set of data that I need to do this exact same thing on, all I have to do is import that data and replace this names here as the new tables, and then run this again. So instead of in Excel, if I was to do it, I'd have to redo VLOOKUP, I'd have to redo all of that stuff. I don't have to do that here. I can quickly create this table really quickly once I have this code ran up by just changing out the tables that are in here and rerunning it. So now if we want to get this, we can do it really simply. We're just going to right click and we're going to hit save results as, and then I'm just going to throw this into my downloads, and I'm going to do it as summarized data. So here's our summarized data, and we can easily do that, make it. So here's all of our summarized data. We have our averages, standard deviation, average height, standard deviation, average body fat, standard deviation for all of this. And that's how you can really simply do this within SQL. You could probably see that there's some things you'd probably just rather do in Excel. It makes it faster. Some things might be really cool to do in SQL as well. The last thing I do want to show you before we go is I want to show you an order by command. So if you want to sort within SQL, instead of taking it into Excel, you can come in here and put order by. So then we can do order by, and then let's order by group, or let's just order by, let's order by group and then sex. So we're going to put the group in brackets. So now if we do this, this is going to sort them by alphabetically from A to Z. Let's sort where our experimental group is going to be first. We'll just put group, and then outside of the column name, we'll just put descending. So DESC is descending. So this will group female, comes before male because F before M, and then C is going to be after E because of the descending order. So that's how we group there. Just to give you a little bit more information before you go, I want to show you how you can filter. So if we come back up here, we can see that we have, group numbers, hundreds, all of those things. So what we want to do, let's add just a little bit onto this, and we're going to add in where. So specifically, let's say that we only want to count IDs that are greater than 200. So for some reason, we know that all of our IDs that were 100 were off. So now we only want to count IDs that were 200 or greater. So this is something you can't really do in Excel without going in and then filtering out all of that data. And usually that means checking a lot of things. So we're going to say where dt.id, since the IDs are equal to each other, is greater than or equal to 200. So now you can see here our numbers have probably changed, right? So the average weight of female was 196.84 and the average weight now is 198. So all of this changed because now if we put this up into this one, after, let's just do that. We can now see it starts at 200 or greater. So that's a really simple way to filter and summarize your data with the filtering built in. And so you could create multiple of these queries if you have to generate like really similar tables for each of your data sets. You could create multiple of these queries, and then every time you need to do that for a new data set, you just import in your data and run those 3 queries and then export your data out. And so that can make it a little bit faster than going in Excel and doing those things. Each has their benefits and negatives to them, but this is just to kind of let you know what's possible if you need to do kind of more complicated stuff in SQL. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to play around with this, you can use the link below and get my codes and this data set so that you can play with it. And kind of test different things out as well. So I hope this was helpful, and let me know in a comment below, do you plan on using SQL? Do you think it's going to be helpful for you, or do you think that just sticking with Excel is going to be what's best for you? I'm interested to find out, and I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.